That's the one thing that people don't realize so much over here. So we've got it so easy.
Yeah.
Like,
we are not the leaders of culture in the world.
no.
We think we are. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
but we're just, 350 million people out of 9 billion?
Well, and
That's not even 10%.
and that right there, we can tie it into what we're going to talk about today, because, I mean, when you think about it, look at the demographics of people that are out there demonstrating pro-Palestine. And these are the people that typically want lots of government services.
Yep.
Absolve my student loans.
Mm-hmm.
They become they're part of this privileged class of people that are used to getting these things. And then when government starts to take these things back, then they start to get upset.
Yeah.
And so we have multiple generations of young people that haven't had to work for things.
Yeah.
Not so much young people, just people in general. It's entitlement.
Yeah.
I saw something the other day. It was speaking exactly on that topic. It was a survey done to parents who came from nothing but built themselves into like millionaires and stuff like that. And they were having these conflicting thoughts of, do we just give it to our kids as inheritance, or do we let them learn that same value that we had of grind it out? Of course, leave it to them at some point, but it's like, I think that grind it out has been lost a lot.
Isn't there a thing about generational wealth? It takes 3 generations for it to disappear.
I think so.
The first generation
Yeah.
creates it. The second generation continues it, like the father-son business.
Yeah.
And then the father passes the business down to the grandson, and the grandson destroys it.
I mean, that
Spends
kind
all
of,
the money.
if you think about it, that kind of makes sense in the sense of my family, just speaking of the land and stuff that we had here in the area. So like, I grew up, I'm related to the Eskews and the Klingemans. Like that was all of our family. Well, my great grandmother's family had all that property off Brody. I had 500 acres right there.
Yeah.
That was getting developed. They sold off their section and then went and bought 25 acres out where we grew up in 1970. And then from there, my parent, all of it had kind of been split up, sold. My grandmother, she's in a home. And so what they sold, her last 5 acres remaining is what's taking care of her health care. And then my dad had 5 of those acres, and they sold that and moved out to Red Rock, and now they have 2.8 acres. And it's like it's slowly went from great grandparents to grandparents to it's just slowly getting smaller. Yeah. So I think that's exactly right. Just a few generations.
Yeah,
but
and we have there's a great illustration of generational wealth and new wealth and how people handle that and how people present themselves in Austin.
Yeah.
Because I Uber drove for a long time, and I will tell people all the time, the misconception people have about the individuals that live in Eanes ISD in Westlake is way off.
Yeah.
Like some of the nicest people I've ever met live in that area, as opposed to the people live out in Lakeway are like entitled snobs.
Yeah.
It's like some of the absolute, they illustrate what happens.
Westlake
when
is
people
old
make
money, Austin.
It's old money, Austin.
Lakeway is new money,
New
Austin.
money, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember growing up, there used to be a ranch out off 71. It was Cactus Jack's. And so when my parents split, my mom lived there, and she did all their accounting for them. And the guy she was with was he was a hand on the. And so, we got to go to the ranch all the time. But when they sold and moved to Oklahoma, you can only see it now. It's all just subdivisions. And all of that has been built up. So that's all new money that's flexed in. Yeah. And it's that new money entitlement. Like I've got money. I deserve this. Whereas old money, Westlake, it's generational wealth. It's people that have been there. Yeah.
They're still somewhat humble and and kind. And they're I've never picked up a snooty person over there or entitled acting person. They're like super nice. But, getting back to the whole entitlement deal, this is one thing I tell my students in class when we start talking about we start talking about empires and what causes empires to collapse and what causes them to fall, things like this. And I tell them, and we start talking about rulers, leaders. And in the history of the world, so you look at, if we're going to talk about Rome here, look at the history of the Roman Empire. How many truly good rulers were there and how many bad ones? Because for every good ruler, you have to go through about 7 to 10 mediocre.
How many generations? I mean, is that?
Yeah, that's a lot. So you have like one good ruler, and then you go through a series of really bad, mediocre to bad ones, and then you have a couple of really bad ones.
Yeah.
Like
Tyrannical.
Caligula, super idiot, and and it's the kids are like, I never really thought about it that way, and then you got the people, you got the people just kind of scratching by and doing their day-to-day thing. That's what happens here. Our country's like that. I would say on average, probably about 65 to 75% of the population doesn't pay attention to the news and doesn't care.
Yeah.
They don't care what's happening in Washington, D.C. Because there's this huge detachment.
I'll say from that sense, I'm on a break from it right now just because I get to the point where I need to shut it off because it's just so much negativity out there right now. What they want to feed you, they want to feed fear through the media, and it gets hard because you get to the point where you're like, I can't even trust what the media says to always be true. Time. It's not the same journalism that we grew up with, I say we grew up with, but who knows what journalism was then?
It was not even real then. Either.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just only 3 networks you could get. Or,
it was 3 networks.
Or the big city papers.
And it was like a handful of guys that people trusted, like Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Who never, in the stuff that I've read and seen, never allowed his personal political beliefs interfere with his job of reporting the news.
Even Peter Jennings was pretty good about it.
Peter Jennings was really good. Tom Brokaw was pretty good. There's been
older.
That's what you're taught journalism is. When you're learning about it in high school, when you're learning about journalism.
Can we throw Dan Rather in there?
Yeah.
He's kind of like, he's a Texan. He's a good Texan guy.
That's what you're taught. You're taught journalism is supposed to be non-biased and all this, but then as you start to see things, especially with the political climate the way it's been the last 10 to 12 years, it's like...
So we've talked about this. We're going to put Josh on the spot here and ask him this question. What is the goal of news? What is it they ultimately want to do?
Now it's ratings. Ultimately, it's money and ratings because everything's money and ratings. It's, I love capitalism, but at the same time, it's the way the capitalist society works. News isn't just to inform anymore. And I think it hasn't been that really since the 24-hour news cycle has become a thing.
Right.
We have this instantaneous need to know what's happening right now when you used to have to wait for the paper the next morning.
Well, and they figured out they could sell ads 24 hours a day.
Absolutely.
So.
Sell ads 24 hours a day. It's not just in print. I think
it's a nonstop money making machine.
CNN was a good thing, but with everything, it's a double-edged sword because, now people expect. I grew up without these.
Yeah.
The fact that I can look up anything I want.
Yeah.
On my phone. It's just like whenever we were on our trip, we were talking about doing a wine tasting in Florence. I'm like, hey, I know a spot. Let me go look at my pictures and make sure I have it. Yep, there it is. There's the website right there. Let's go there.
Where before you'd have to get a map.
Where before I'd
get
been
a brochure from
been,
the hotel.
I'd have been out of luck, man. It's like, I don't remember. It's kind of over in this area, and then walk over there and like, no,
kind of
like
goes along.
Baby cow wallets.
Kind of goes along with what we were talking about downstairs before the podcast, and I'll kind of bring it back to Rome here in a minute, where the Alexander the Great had said there's 4 ways to be able to control society, and that's give them healthcare, give them education, give them athletics, and give them entertainment. And now we have all of that in seconds in our hand,
more.
And more instant dopamine. And it's like, if you can keep people distracted, you can do what you want as a empire,
especially if you're distracting the 50 to 60% of the people who aren't even paying attention.
Yeah.
Then you just really got to distract the people over here.
And you don't even have to deliver well on all 4 of those, because I would contend that we don't provide good health care
right
at all.
Right.
Period.
Right.
We don't, but we've got the other three.
But I think we've replaced healthcare with individualism.
Mm-hmm.
I think we keep people from being in groups because, again, back to Rome, a lot of what happened in Rome was you had the barbarians, different sects of people that were still remaining in those groups that were like, hey, we don't like this. We're going to fight back against it. We've pushed so much individualism in America that, we don't even come together as groups anymore.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned barbarians. I tell my students that here are the dangerous words when you're teaching history. Always, every time, when you're talking, there are no absolutes. Honestly, but I've told them this, that when we look at empires, and when we start to look at when an empire has a military, the moment the leader or the leaders began to hire military, they began to hire from outside their ranks. When they hire mercenaries, that's the beginning of the fall. Because once you start hiring mercenary armies, they are no longer loyal to you. They are loyal to this.
Right.
And typically in history, a lot of the mercenaries were Germanic barbarians, and they were considered barbarians because they were Germanic. They didn't bathe, they didn't take care of themselves, but man, they could fight. They were violent, and they could fight very, very well. So the Germanic tribes typically made up those bands of people that were hired for military service. So the moment you hire a group of people to fight for you, and this is played out through history, what's to keep them from taking more money from the opposition to not fight?
So let me ask you that then in reference to America, because America already does this. They've been doing it for years by hiring their former CIA operatives and special forces people to go in and be contract work overseas. Is that the same thing along the lines of what you're talking about, or is that
no? I'm
different?
talking about like full blown militaries.
Oh,
so
okay.
like our military works because it's volunteer.
Gotcha.
We don't have conscription.
Okay.
Whereas in other countries around the world, you're required to serve a certain number. Once you hit 18, you have to serve. Like in South Korea, once you hit 18, you have to serve a certain amount of time. But here, when you hire a former general, I think a lot of that comes with the comfort level of knowing he or she understands the inner workings of how our intelligence gathering works. And, be hard pressed to say, and I'm probably a little bit on the outside looking in terms of how I feel about this, as far as it relates to our country and hiring people to be operatives and things like that to go out and watch things around the world. One, I wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
I don't have the skill set to do it. And three, I don't want to know what they're doing, and I don't want to know where they're doing. Yeah. All I want to know is that, are we safe? Are we safe in this country? And, and I talk about this a lot when I teach government. And I talk about it in AP World. The term trade-offs. What are you willing to give up in order to have this?
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. Because 9/11 was a big wake-up call for our country. We'd been sitting back on our heels and kind of, basking in the glow of being a very young country and having all these things, having a very high standard of living, having high GDP, having a high average income, mean income, and things were, we're kind of chugging along pretty well, and then boom, out of nowhere, this happens.
Yeah.
And it's not a country. And I think for a lot of people in this country, they don't understand the difference between Vietnam, Korea, World War I and World War II, and what's happening now, because terrorism doesn't have a country. It's everywhere. We have domestic terrorists. There are people in this country that prey on our downfall.
Yeah. Well, I think that's similar to, like we're going to talk about the rise of Rome, the rise of America too. America rose to such power so fast, and it's like you said, we just kind of sat back and we're like, oh, we're at the top, it's like, And
it's interesting how we get to the top.
Yeah.
Thank you, World War One.
Yeah.
World War II.
And then World War II. World War One specifically because we as a country going into when World War One started, and we're still expanding westward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We do not have a strong military. We don't have a strong economy. We're still very agrarian.
Well, everything was still very mechanical.
It's
back
still
then.
very mechanical.
You had to build things
I
to
would
fight.
venture to say that in terms of, like, we weren't even a top 10 economy around the world. We were
Yeah.
not a top 10 military. And we didn't start the war. We didn't get involved until the last, 24 months?
Yeah.
And in 24 months, we go
What
from
was that,
being
the assassination?
Franz Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand?
But we didn't get involved until the sinking of the Lusitania, until the unrestricted submarine warfare, where they're sinking passenger ships that we now know the U.S. was using to smuggle supplies, military supplies, to our allies, our quote unquote allies. So,
Mhm.
and when I say quote unquote, that means we weren't outwardly allied with them. We were neutral. But then we get in, and in 24 months, we go from being unranked. It's like the Notre Dame football team, man. We go from being unranked to we help win a war, and also we're number one. The voters love us again. We're like number one, and then we go back to isolation.
Yeah.
We're like, we're not. So there's a lot to be seen, and then how we help rebuild Europe to keep what happened in lead up to World War II, the interwar period, from happening again. And then we get involved in conflicts today, and then we turn around and we help rebuild. Well, I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, you're pot committed, because if you don't, then you end up with guys with funny mustaches out there attracting a large following. And he wasn't the only one speaking out in Germany during this time. There were a lot of different political ideologies out there. He was just better at it.
Yeah.
And people started to follow him, and there's a lot of a lot of danger in that, because we don't know what it's like there, and we can compare it to here. We can compare it to Rome. We can compare it to Greece. Anytime a country has fallen or an empire has fallen, and then you have somebody come along that starts speaking about, hey, I could do a better job. And this happens on the continent of Africa a lot. And this is when all the dictators, and we can thank imperialism for this, colonialism, is whenever things aren't going well and somebody comes along and says, well, I can do better than those guys.
Like, what do we have to lose?
They suck. I mean, they're like, well, I mean, things are pretty bad with this cat here, so let's follow this guy. And then all of a sudden he gets in power, and it gets worse. And I mean,
which has happened throughout history.
That right there is the history of the continent of Africa in a nutshell. I mean, look at those countries there and the dictators they've had. Some of the most ruthless rulers in the world, in the history of the world, have been in the continent of Africa.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is that
in the 19th and 20th centuries, by the way,
hacking up kids with machetes,
you don't even don't even talk about it a lot of time. I didn't learn about that stuff in school, and it's like you just think about that, and it's like
I've had a complete shift, because I really, in the past, when I taught world history, I hated teaching African history. I shouldn't say hate, but it was not my favorite.
Yeah,
it was like, here's my list of things. Here's my least favorite things. Africa's way down here. And in the last 5 to 7 years, it's become one of my most favorite things to talk about.
You think that's because you didn't talk about it for so long? Maybe found a new interest in
I think because I've learned more on my own. I talk about Anthony Bourdain a lot. His shows have really helped bring to light, and I've met a lot of people from countries in Africa. I've met people from Ghana. I've met people from the Congo. I've met people from Sudan. On our flight back from Rome, one of the stewardesses, he is from Senegal. And because I asked him, I said, we get ready to get off the plane. I said, yo, brother, where are you from, man? He goes, I'm from Senegal.
How do you spell that?
Senegal. I said, you're from Senegal, huh? He goes, yeah. He goes, I was raised in northern Italy. Yeah. He goes, I was raised in northern Italy. So Senegal was one of those countries that early on in the slave trade was impacted by slave trade.
It's right there on the
But
coast.
he goes, because I heard him talking that he was working to pick up a shift that would take him to Senegal, and he was going to take about 5 days off to spend time with family there.
Yeah.
And I said, you're the second Senegalese person I've ever met. He goes, really? I said, I met someone from Senegal through soccer. I said, I used to be a high school soccer coach. So we talked for a little bit. He's a super nice guy, man. Very educated, very smart, very well spoken. Yeah, I mean it's.
Well, it is the motherland.
But it's the country, the continent of Africa is huge, and I mean, look at that green section right there.
Yeah.
So there are certain countries that, I was watching the episode on the Congo, and the Belgians, man. If you go to Congo, if you ever go to the Congo, do not mention the Belgians. They hate Belgians. Because if I've never been to Belgium, but Antwerp and Brussels were built off the stolen resources of the Congo. They would cut people's hands off if they didn't meet quotas.
Well, they used to do that in the Bible. They used to steal things, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, these are things. This is like the 19th century during colonialism.
Yeah.
Whenever
They still do that in Middle East countries.
yeah,
too.
I mean it's
Cut your hands
so
off, steal.
talking about Africa has become one of my favorite topics to talk about, because it sheds light on the dangers of imperialism and how, especially in the West, we view ourselves as superior when we're probably actually inferior.
It's interesting to think about too, because so much of Africa was under United Kingdom rule for a long time, was it not? And it wasn't even
France. It was mainly
the last 100 years they've all been independent.
The main countries that were involved was England, France to a certain extent. France more or less right across the Mediterranean,
right?
With Algeria. And,
but like the Congo was under the UK, wasn't it?
That was Belgium.
Was it Belgium? Oh, that's why they had the Belgians. Okay.
Yeah, the Belgium. When the explorer came there, they welcomed him when they should have killed him.
It's really eye-opening to see how close all of these countries are together. And how close they all are to Israel.
Well, and again, when
we're way over here, just kind of
when we were in Italy,
doing our own thing.
I would probably say, like the further south, Rome's an interesting case study, because it's kind of like right there in the center of the country, but it's the capital, and so when people immigrate into Italy, they typically head towards Rome. But right now there's a massive anti-illegal immigrant wave sweeping across Italy, and it's why the fascist party's coming back to strength because of that. Yeah, there's the big political building there. Yeah.
So when you say fascist, are you talking fascist in the same sense that we know fascism as?
It's the same party. It's remnants of the same party, some of the same basic ideals that Mussolini supported. And always, and there's a difference between fascism and Nazism.
Yeah.
Big time difference, which we don't teach. We're not good at teaching our kids these things. And again, I say it all the time. I'll say it till people are tired of hearing it. Social studies is the most important subject we teach, and the one we do the worst job of. Because look at how many freaking idiots and morons we have just in our society alone that have no basic concept and understanding. Again, people, you're protesting for Palestine. All right? Go to Gaza, meet up with some Hamas people, and let me know how that works out for you. And don't go cry to the embassy like these other clowns did. They went over there to demonstrate. Look, I get it. There's bad things that are happening around the world. There's bad things. Innocent people are getting caught up in it. That's called war.
Yeah.
And World War I was the first conflict where civilian casualties died on large scale that had happened, because typically before then it was militaries versus militaries.
Yeah.
And World War I brought innocent civilians into the fray, and more so World War II. And from then on it became like just an accepted process.
Well, you talk about teaching our history and how it's the most important. Like Germany themselves put so much emphasis on teaching the Holocaust because
They didn't want it to happen.
they don't want it to happen again.
Right.
You know, they put that emphasis, and we as a country, like you said, I don't think we do a great job of that. People, I mean, even my wife, sorry, babe, she was just like, history's so boring to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was
My
so,
wife says the
but
same
it's
thing.
so important.
It's 'cause you didn't have a good teacher.
It is so important.
Look, there's
I think
the
some
know
people
our
are just
history.
less curious about things, and
Yeah.
for people like us, I'm just curious about how people lived and how we got to where we are today, because we didn't just happen to be this way. Generations and thousands of years have created this kind of culture, and that we've. Of course,
Well,
the United States culture has only been around for 250 years now, but
I would argue another thing that we don't put enough importance on because we're isolated, like you were saying a while ago, James, is geography.
mm-hmm.
The geography is so important, especially when you look at historical books like the Bible and different historical books from Europe. Like geography plays such an important role in so many different religions, so many different, their history, their geography, their numerology. All of those are so important in countries over there, and we just take it for granted here.
And we only think back to our history.
History started 200 years ago.
Yeah,
250 years ago.
instead of all the history that was here before us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes into, it always laugh. I don't even respond to these people anymore. We're a democracy. No, we've never been a democracy. No. We are a republic.
Yeah.
Look it up. Look at how republics were formed. We're not a democracy. We are a representative democracy. We are a hodgepodge of different political ideals established that were brought forth by the Greeks and the Romans. And our founding fathers were very well versed and educated on this. I'm sitting here looking at the Vatican, and you're talking about
our founding fathers are spinning in their grave.
You're talking about people that are misguided, man. And when you walk around Rome, like you see the ruins, because when we left the Colosseum, we walk around the Forum, and what's funny is Rome's a massively large city, but there's a Sistine Chapel. Illegally took a picture there. But what's funny about that is, we walk around there and see the ruins. I'll tell you where I want to go. I want to go to Lebanon.
Yeah.
When outside of Beirut, somewhere in Lebanon is the most intact Roman ruins of a Roman city, and that shows you how large the Roman Empire was in Beirut, Lebanon. And it's just absolutely crazy because you see pictures there. There's hardly anybody there.
Even up in the UK, there's I think there's a wall that spans like 1,500 kilometers.
Look at where
that was the edge of Roman.
Look at the Roman Empire here. Here's Lebanon. There's Beirut.
God, way over.
Yep.
And
Greece.
Look, and you gotta have to scroll over,
going
man.
out.
You got to scroll. There's Rome.
Yeah, and then if you keep going out, you go all the way up
to
the UK. They expanded up into the UK.
The Roman Empire goes all the way up towards Germany, Belgium, into Poland.
So how did they get so big? How did they get such a loyal following? Obviously, because you need the army to squash anything else.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that
Hellenism.
Yeah, the education and in all honesty, I mean, the Romans were not. I mean, they were pretty benevolent rulers over their people. As long as you didn't muck around and mess up, they let you live your life, and this is the sign of good rulers when they conquer people. Is when they don't try to impose a lot of belief systems and political ideas on them. Like, look, we're gonna let you do your daily life. You do you. All right. You keep doing you.
This is Caesar.
This is what we ask in
Send us
return.
money.
Early on, what tribute?
Basically a shakedown by the mafia. Is what that is.
Well, and you could be a part of a conquered Roman Empire and be in their military. You just couldn't be a Roman citizen.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had a tribute coin.
Yeah.
You had to take once a year, I believe, to pay your tribute to Caesar, and that was your tax. And that was actually funny enough. I'm going to roll it into the Bible real quick. That was the coin that when Jesus was in the temple, he was saying, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's. And in the temple, you were not supposed to have Roman money. And so it was kind of funny because then as he was like, does anybody have a coin? One of the Pharisees pulls out this coin, or I guess it was a Sadducee. It was a Sadducee. One of the Sadducees pulls out a coin, which then shows, oh, well, here's Hellenism right here in the middle of the Roman temple. And he's like, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's. And it's like, it was pretty interesting. But.
So I think for people, the Roman Empire, I mean, be hard pressed to say that there was anything like it afterwards. I mean, the Habsburg Empire was pretty good, and Napoleon had a good thing, but in terms of the scale that the Roman Empire was, and it really had, I think a lot of it had to do with how they ruled over the people that they conquered, because they could pretty much go about their daily lives and do their things. They oftentimes, in a lot of places, established local rule, locals to be rulers within the umbrella of the Roman Empire, while still having, maybe every now and then have some Romans, there to oversee things, but
which is similar to our county, state, city governments.
They're like ambassadors.
Yeah,
like we have ambassadors around the world.
Well, it's kind of more like what their Senate was as opposed to what our Senate is. A little bit of different.
And the Roman Empire had a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the Roman
around.
Well, yeah, I mean they
Herod.
Yeah. So when you look at, again, when you walk around, and this is something a lot of people don't know, is the Colosseum was disassembled, and those stones were used in other building projects. So like when you go to the Colosseum today, it's an amazing structure. It's beautiful, and it's super cool. And again, I've been blessed. Thanks, Rob, for getting me on these trips. I've been blessed to be there twice, and but what a lot of people don't know, because we're walking around, we're listening to these in our whispers, they're telling us like, well, that they started to disassemble the Colosseum, and people think, man, why in the hell would they do that? Well, we're talking way back then, and they needed that stone for other projects, and then they would build it back up, disassemble and build it back up. They're great recyclers, I guess, but the Roman Empire, we talk about the fall of the Roman Empire. Really, if you want to put a pin in a timeline of when that starts to happen, is whenever they split the Roman Empire into Western and Eastern Roman Empire, because the economics of it were not equal. The Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, is over there near the Bosporus, which was the trading center, really, of Silk Road, because it was the gateway for Asian traders to get access to Western European markets. And so when they split the empire in two, you have the Western Roman Empire over here. Well, they kind of get you want an analogy, if people want to think about it, the North and the South.
I was about to say, like,
where you have a very wealthy, when you have very wealthy, begins to become highly developed, very educated one side, and then you have, here's Rome. You're Charleston. I'm sorry, you're the South, and there's a split. It wasn't lost on the people back then. They're like, well, this split's not really fair, and so you start to have these divisions. But there's some good things that come of that, because, the Eastern Roman Empire becomes Byzantine. They preserved the works of Aristotle and Socrates and Galileo. The Arab scholars that were there helped preserve all those works of science and literature, so that whenever we get out of the Dark Ages and, Italy starts to come back, because you had the Papal States and you have these different kingdoms, and it wasn't until the mid 1800s, in the early 1800s, that Italy becomes a unified country again, that we end up, thankfully, have those. So people are anti-Islam. We can thank the Muslim scholars for preserving this. And so, when people ask me these questions, like, well, what about this? What about that? I have a different perspective. I have a degree in history. It doesn't make me all knowing because I am not.
Yeah.
I am not an expert on anything but
Sure.
a lot of bull crap and stuff. But I'm very careful about what I say.
Yeah.
And if I ever say things that are not correct, I have no problem being corrected, especially in the context of historical references that need to be accurate. But I look at it from the aspect of a historian, and I look at the pros and the cons, and I just have a hard time talking history with people that don't have the same understanding. I don't mind answering questions, but it's when people aren't open to listening.
One of the things that James asked a while ago was about how did they get so big, and I think part of that was some of the alliances they made. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Harold the Great was one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest men in the world because of the spice trade, and he essentially had all the spices. Well, they basically said, Harold, we'll let you keep your stuff. Just, throw some of that money our way and then they became alliances. And Harold had stone quarries. Harold had all of these things that the Romans took advantage of and used because Harold.
Very similar to today's government and using like oligarchs or tech billionaires to fill in the gaps where the government can't.
Yeah.
Well, and look at the Medici family. We wouldn't have had the Renaissance without them. Yeah. And if you're, and in Florence, it's all Medici all the time. It's the Medicis and Michelangelo. And so we didn't walk across that bridge where all the jewelry sellers are that used to be the meat and fish market back in the day. But on that bridge, there's a it's not a tunnel, it's a walkway that's up above that bridge because the Medicis had that built because they didn't want to walk around the common people. So they were able to go from their quarters over here to their places over here to do that. And so we're walking around and telling the kids this, and they're like, I wish we had been able to go to that bridge because we went there 5 years ago. And it is really cool because the shopping there, it's touristy. You're going to pay higher prices. You're better off waiting until you get to the different parts of town. But when you look up and you see that, they're like, well, what's that? They're like, why is that thing on top up there? I said, well, it's the Medici walkway, man. They didn't want to mingle with the common people.
Yeah.
Well, how can they want to mingle with the common people? Because they were very rich. They were very wealthy. And you see the Medici name on a lot of things, and there's pros and cons to that. There's good and bad because, the Medicis, had the ear of the Pope, and they knew all these artists. And then it's funny because when we left Florence, our next stop was in Rome, and when you walk around the Vatican, you see the works of Raphael and Michelangelo and all these people that the Medicis helped introduce to the Catholic Church. Raphael's buried at the Pantheon. It's just it's really cool. I forget where we were. When we were in Turin, we need apparently the Pope is the only one that can determine when the shroud is brought out for display.
Oh wow!
So we did go by the church where they do display it, but it's just, it's just there's a lot of things that are involved with Italy, and when we're walking around, I have to remind myself, like, this is the epicenter of the Roman Empire, especially when we're in Rome, because you do see ruins everywhere. They're all over the place, and it's a constant reminder. And some of them are in better shape and been preserved better than others. We were talking about Circus Maximus down there. We talked about it last time. Circus Maximus is a concert venue now. But when you look at it from overhead, you can still see, and when you're there, you can still see the outlines, the remnants of what used to be grandstands. They could fit 150,000 people in there.
That's insane.
And that's where they killed Christians.
Wasn't it like Rome got to be the size of 50 million people? I think something like that.
Yeah,
which
50
in
million?
Athens, is that right? Is that number?
I don't know if it's. I think the Roman Empire probably had that.
Yeah, that's
that
what I'm
number
saying.
of people. That because
not in Rome, but the Roman Empire. But it's just like
it's massively large. Think about the administration of that.
That was so.
We have cities that can't even minister their own cities.
When the killing of Christians,
there it is.
That was part of what I think was also what you said about the split, right? Romans started attacking Romans, and that used to not be the way. And so when Romans started attacking Romans, that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you start attacking yourselves, and you can parallel that with America, you know, we're so divisive and so
Yeah.
divided right now
Yeah.
that we just attack each other. Right now, maybe it's online. Sometimes it's in the streets, but it is happening.
I think it's quickly gone to the streets. There's the
Yeah.
Ponte Vecchio. Yeah. They had their own walkway. Look at that.
They can walk around and look at the peasants.
To the Palazzo Vecchio. I'm telling you, if you ever get together, scroll back up. Go to the Uffizi Gallery. That's pretty cool. The Uffizi Gallery.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think I would love to see so much going over there. Is just all the architecture.
There's a lot to see.
Oh man, just buildings that were built centuries and centuries ago.
And our trips over there are like vacation previews.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and it's like teaching world history. It's a lot like teaching world history. I don't dive deep anymore into any particular topics because my job is to present an overview.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what happened. Here's the important things. We got, and I hate to say this, but we have to check boxes because there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
It's a preview. It's an overview. And if kids are more interested in it, they can go research on their own. Or when you get to college, like what I did, French Revolution, Napoleon, history of Russia.
Yeah.
Those are deeper dives into those areas. Far East Asia, comparing cultures, Japan and the U.S., things like that. The history of China. Those are the courses you can take when you get to college and high school. It's an overview. I don't like teaching U.S. history. I'm not a fan. I don't like politicians telling me what I can and cannot teach because it makes us look bad.
Mm-hmm.
Our feelings get hurt, and let
They're
me
trying
do
to control the narrative.
let me do my job, and whenever we go to these places,
Rewrite history.
talk to locals, and find out what's going on. Like the people in Turin who are pro demonstrating for Palestine. I've had some good conversations with locals in all the countries I go to, where I find out things and learn more context about places that we're at. And it's like the guy at the Titanic experience in the region. I think we're in the region of Cork in Ireland, and we walk in, and there's this guy standing over there. We get our ticket has a name on it, and your job is to find references to that name on the ticket and learn as much about them as possible. They were on the Titanic. So we walk in, there's this guy standing there. And I said, hey man, what's up? He goes, hey, how are y'all doing? I said, man, we're just on this tour. And he goes, oh, okay. I said, he had this whiskey barrel set up and had this whole thing. And I just saw him and he looked friendly. I just said something to him. And I said, well, man, I guess we're going to get this. He goes, do you like whiskey? Yes. And it started, we were there for like 15, 20 minutes listening to him talk about, he's like a 7th generation whiskey barrel maker. His family had whiskey barrels on the Titanic, and he had some whiskey barrels out there. And he goes, would y'all like a sample? And we're like, yeah. He goes, it's €5 each. And I was like, okay. And it was Irish whiskey, Redbreast 12-year-old Redbreast Irish whiskey, like some of the best stuff I've ever had. And I said, man, that was really good. He goes, would you like another one? Yes, sir, I would. Please.
Yes, sir. Give me another.
We're like Woody at Cheers over here, man. Just start serving us up.
I'd be like, how much for the bottle?
But yeah, I mean, but like just talking to him, he's a local. He goes, they allow me to come and set up here to educate people about, the importance of Irish whiskey to our country, and that the Titanic was not just a passenger ship. They were transporting goods, and
right.
And all that comes from
and bankers.
All that comes from, I guess, being Texan. Like, hey man, what's up?
Yeah,
you just talking to people, and and the same thing happens in Rome. We were in that Palazzo this summer where it's a nice, really nice building, and then there's this fountain where we were there 5 years ago, where this police officer told Rob and I the history behind the guy who designed the building and the guy that designed the statue, because they were rivals and they didn't like each other and both of them wanted the building, and the real conservative guy won the building, and so his adversary was bound determined to win the fountain, and so he did, and he made the fountain very graphic with like naked bodies and stuff. And I was like, "Shut up, dude! You're kidding." He goes, "No, I'm not."
No, that's funny.
Just from
The personal ego war.
yeah, just from talking to him.
That's
and,
funny.
You know, and what I found is that when you go to places, people are more than happy to talk about their history. It's just a matter of where you're at, because in Italy they'll talk to you about you know, the Roman Empire and things like that, and you have a lot of local guides there. We've had some pretty good local guides, but you know, they have good insight that we don't. You know, they have it from an insider's viewpoint. We have it from an outsider's viewpoint. You know, they don't really talk about Mussolini, but like we were in Lake Como the very first day in country. And who was I talking to? It may have been our tour director, Lavinia, or I don't think we had a local guy that day. I said, man, it should be nice to go to that spot here in town. She goes, what spot? I said, you know, where Mussolini. She's like, oh. She goes, that spot. I said, yeah. She goes, oh, that's right. You teach world history. Because we talked about that, you know,
Yeah.
my students. So they you know, it's funny because in that country they do teach about the dangers of fascism, but yet the fascist party again is on the rise. In large part because of their anti-immigrant stance. And you know, Greece has stood up recently and has announced, you know, they turned away 5,000.
Did you see Poland yesterday marching in the streets against immigration?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you see so many of these things too hide under the guise of humanitarianism. And it's like we were talking about the people here that protest Palestine, or that are protesting for Palestine and stuff like that. It's like you were saying, you can go meet someone from Hamas and then tell me that you would do the same thing. It's like
Hamas.
We think we're doing it because of a humanitarian reason, because Palestine deserves to be there as well. You know, it's like.
And it also makes you wonder how many of those are paid agitators and don't really care one way or another about Israel or Palestine.
But do they really deserve to be there?
Well,
I mean, by birth.
That's a whole other podcast.
I mean, by birthright. I mean, you know, and again, I mean, it's. I just find it interesting that the demographic in this country that supports an organization that would kill them.
Yeah.
Because I did tell that girl under the canopy in Turin, I said, you know, so when does Hamas celebrate Pride Month? When do Palestinians? She goes, well, at the same time. I go, wrong. They kill LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
They'll throw you off a building.
Yeah, they will behead you.
Yeah.
They'll kill you. I said, but you know, in Israel they do. They celebrate Pride Month. She's like, what? Oh, it's okay.
Oh, you didn't know, but now
it's
you do.
okay. I mean, and again, I think if more people understood what was going on and understood the history of that region and why it's so jacked up over there, and people need to, you know, I'm not a big Bible thumper, but people, you know, get in your Bible. The Bible's real. The Bible matches up with the historical timeline of the world. There are so many correlations. You know, like, hey, by the way, there was a King Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. And there was a Babylon. And
those people are all real.
There was a Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
Like
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they're all real.
It's a history.
Those are real people. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to believe like we do, but you might want to look at some correlations.
People are so quick to dismiss it because we believe there's a deity involved in the creation of this history book, and because the history book points at a deity, and then immediately that discounts it. But it's still a history book written by people who actually lived.
Well, and the Roman Empire is mentioned in
the history.
Let's talk about that. So a lot of the conflict that's happening over there now obviously started after the crucifixion and the fall of the Roman Empire. But before that, when Rome controlled all of that area, how did they lose it? You said Christianity was involved in.
So Christianity's a small part of it, but a lot of it comes in with just the sheer administration of a large empire, and this is part of why they split the empire in two. Yeah. So you have an administrative center in the east, you have an administrative center in the west. We've seen how that doesn't work.
Yeah.
and not necessarily before then, but it's a pattern after that. That when you split, you have
so
two
they got
different.
too big.
Yeah, it got too big, and when you think about it, and people got pretty comfortable in the Roman Empire of having these particular things, and when you start to run out of money, and you cut back services, and typically with groups of people, it implodes upon itself. So you look at us. Look at us. Look at our country, and there are correlations there. I mean, I personally think that we are we become a very selfish and egocentric society where, what's in it for me? What can I get?
Yeah.
Oh, I think the government needs to do this. The government needs to do that. No, the government's job is to provide structure and order and protection.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is not to pay off your student loans. Their job is not to do, provide you with aid indefinitely till you get back on your feet. The government's role is not to provide you with this amount of money per child and you never go work. That's not what those programs were established for during the Great Depression. They were and I got news for people. The New Deal projects didn't work. World War II worked.
It pumped money.
It made people feel good about themselves. My granddad grew up during that time, and he told me, he goes, the New Deal was pretty cool because it got me a job, but it didn't get us out of depression. So when a country becomes, a country or empire gets too big, and the administration of that becomes too taxing, I mean, I look at, you can compare it to a lot of things. The majority of a school district's budget goes to salaries. So at what point in we look at our economy, look at their economy, at what point do you top out and you have to start all over? When can it not sustain itself? Because look at communism. Command economies don't work. Communism didn't work. And their economy wasn't a pure command economy. China had a command economy. It didn't work. So at what point do we price ourselves out?
Yeah.
And at what point do we...
So is it only an economic factor that's going to make an empire fall, or is it...
It's social, it's political.
Good versus evil factor kind of thing, too. Like when a country gets so corrupt that both wings of the same bird are in bed together in the corruption, and they're taking money that's ruining the economy, or taking money from us to give to themselves.
Or give to their special interest.
Are there revolts that have happened over time in the Roman Empire that were more than just money? Was it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's
moral uprisings
in different parts of the Roman Empire. I mean, this is one of the things that was so, I guess, advantageous about their military. I mean, you didn't want to do things that would cause the Roman emperor to send the military in, because at one point the Roman army was the most feared group of people on the face of the earth. I mean, look at how
we are now.
Yeah,
right.
Look at how their army. Look at how their guys were dressed. Man, look at their outfits. Man, just their outfits alone. Look how they marched in unison. I mean, you see those cats coming down the walk. Whew, I'm going back in my house.
You can hear them coming from miles away.
And it's kind of like, a lot of it I compare with the Mongols. The Mongols were so efficient in what they did, a lot of times based on reputation alone. Ivan the Terrible had his group of men riding around the countryside wearing all black and riding on black horses. And if you didn't do what the Tsar said, here comes the henchmen. It's the precursor to the KGB. Here comes these guys. You don't want to piss them off, because don't make me send my guys in there.
Yeah.
Don't make me tell my dad. Don't make me get my mama. That kind of stuff. And so with the Roman Empire, but eventually, again, we start to look at the decay from within, and I think that was a lot of Rome's problems. You have lack of proper administration. You have people, looking out for their own best interest and not the interest of
their neighbor,
their country, the empire, and you have people clamoring for power. Because how did Caesar die?
Yeah,
when you're on top, stabbed in the back. When you're on top, people want to be there. And throughout the history of the world, we see rulers get displaced because of that. Jealousy is a real thing. And then when you have an empire this large, and back during that time period, you couldn't hop on a plane or a train and go somewhere pretty quick. So you have to have good administrators in those parts of the world where your empire is that you trust. And I think that was pretty hard back then.
And once they start to break off, they become their own. They have their own army out there.
Well, you said it was pretty hard back then, but you also look at it now. Like, how many people distrust their public servants? How many people distrust the people in charge?
All of them. Should be all of them.
Yes.
If there's one person out there that says they trust the government, then they need to get their head checked.
Their head checked.
But they trust the government, and I'm going to circle this back to what I said earlier about individualism. It's much easier to control people if you keep them as individuals and instead of teaming up. And so if you're able to say, okay, well, if you're like California, for instance, if you're a single mom out in California, you get all of these governmental benefits to take care of yourself. They're encouraging you to stay single. They're encouraging you to do all these things by giving you all of these benefits. You get great health care. You get subsidies, all sorts of stuff out there.
Yeah, you get rent and food subsidies.
Yeah.
You can almost, nothing against our people from California.
Nothing. Yeah.
Ashley. I think Ashley is from California. I don't want to get on Ashley.
She fled, though.
Yeah, I don't want to get on her bad side. I texted her that earlier.
Slash her tires.
But look at California. California is a great example. They're doing their own thing. They kind of been doing their own thing for a while. And the people that have gotten fed up, that have been able to move, have moved. The people that are still there that aren't able to move, eventually there's going to come a point, there's a breaking point for everybody. And where it's not going to work out for the people in power out there. Look at the mayor of Los Angeles. What a ding-dong. Like, you are literally going to you're going to sign a quote-unquote executive order circumventing federal policies. That's not going to work out for you, ma'am. You look stupid, and I get you want to be a humanitarian, and I don't understand, and I get that, but look at what some of these other people, our borders are. Look
the
at
way
they're
going about it there is destroying people's self-worth.
And
you're not going to uplift a society by keeping them down.
Well, and you destroy people's confidence in what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think probably more so now, and whether it's informed and educated or not, the fact that it's happening, I think more people are paying attention and questioning what the government's doing. Look in our state. I've seen more people speak out against Greg Abbott. When his little football analogy down there in Kerrville, you're a moron, dude. Keep your mouth shut. Get your little weasel friend Dan Patrick to be quiet too, trying to ban all these things.
I love it when it goes off on Abbott and Patrick.
Well, and I'm conservative, but they don't represent me.
Yeah.
And you vote for them because the other side doesn't put anybody worth a crap out there
at all.
So I mean,
kind of have faith in the system at that point.
It's funny. And again,
in that way they've also painted us into our corners.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They've given you a lesser of two evils, and it's been like that since we were kids.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I picked Ross Perot in my first presidential election.
Hey, me too.
In '92, because I'm not voting for this guy. He just took us to war, and I'm not voting for Bill Clinton because it's Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
So I like Ross Perot from Dallas.
Yeah.
He's and a smart businessman, and Trump is the 2.0 of Ross Perot.
Yeah. Yeah. He really is, because he's a businessman, but he has more appeal because people knew more about him.
Yeah.
Because of his TV show. I mean, like it or not, he was on a WrestleMania or two. He gets involved.
He's a showman.
He's been on some movies.
I think it was so funny because he was like, even back in like the early '90s when he was on Oprah and stuff like that, and it's like everybody wanted him to run for president, and he was like, "Oh, I never, not unless I really feel like the country needs a turnaround." And it's like,
well, and he always said he'd run as a Republican.
Yeah.
It's.
Granted, he did say that by saying we were stupid voters, but
yeah. But
sometimes I think he's up to something when he says things that
I'll
don't make
say
sense.
this. I mean, I have to be careful how I word this.
No, you don't.
If you well, that's true. People that vote strictly based on party, I question the validity of your vote because, like school teachers in the state of Texas vote against their best interest all the time because they vote for the R beside the name because they're pro-life. I get that. I'm pro-life too.
It's kind of a deal killer.
But that shouldn't be the thing that causes you to vote for an individual that's going to be in office, because at the end of the day, you need to be voting for the interest of yourself and your family. You be voting for the person, not the party. And and I can circle this back to what we're talking about with Rome and comparing it to our country. We have
real quick. I want to say, especially when it comes to like school districts and school boards and stuff like that, because
Locals,
you're
yes.
voting for a school board, that person, whether they have that R next to their name or not, is going to have nothing to do with pro-life, pro-choice.
Right, and they have to declare. You have to declare
Yes.
party affiliation when
Yes.
when you run for office,
Correct.
and all the way down to local sheriffs. They have to do that. The mayor, whatever kind of mayor system your city has, like Buda is direct elect. My hometown is indirect. We vote for the city council, and then the city council selects the mayor pro tem. So it's an indirect selection. But we have a large percentage of our country that's an uneducated electorate, and we have a very apathetic electorate. So there are a lot of people that are willing to get out there and complain about how this, that, and the other is going on in this country, but they probably didn't vote. And we also have political parties that don't put the best candidates up.
Yep.
And so if we circle that back to Rome, those people weren't, emperors weren't necessarily selected, or they weren't voted for, but here they are. Were they the best? No, but you look at their administrators, the people they brought on to do their job, and so I'm just looking up here at some things that he has up here. The pagan temples. A lot of people seem to forget that the Romans killed Christians at a massive clip.
Oh yeah, I brought up the burning of the library in Alexandria.
Yeah. Saul was really good at it, who became Paul.
Well, a lot of that too was a threat, because you go from a country that is inviting of all religions, inviting of all polytheism. Like, they were already a polytheistic country, but like we said earlier, when they conquer you, they would say, we don't care. You still worship the God that you want to worship. Well, then when Christianity comes along, it says that conviction of this is one God. And so then it's like it's a monotheism, and you had so many people willing to lay their lives down for that monotheistic viewpoint that it really was a threat in that sense. And so what better way to respond than let's kill the Christians?
Well, and probably more.
You got the Holy Wars.
Yeah.
Well, and probably more so than any other religious group within the Roman Empire. Christians were willing to die for their beliefs. Others
Still
were easily swayed to convert and do something else. A lot of conquered peoples that came under the context of the Roman Empire would follow, who was it? Who was the equivalent of Zeus in Roman history? Whoever their Roman gods were, they had different names for them. I want to say Pluto, but it wasn't.
I mean, they had Neptune was the sea.
Yeah, Neptune was the sea.
Mars
not Poseidon. Mars. Who was I'm trying to remember who Zeus was, but people were a little bit more willing to convert because it was easier. Christians not so much. Yeah, Jupiter was king of the gods. So, Christians weren't willing to convert. They were staunch about being a single God. And then when the emperor
Constantinople.
Yeah, well, and when he changed the Roman Empire to Christianity. Because again, Circus Maximus, and in those places in Roman towns is where they killed Christians, because it was standing room only. They had to turn them away because 150 to 200,000 people would show up to watch Christians be murdered.
Yeah. That's insane.
Mm.
And Saul was the one bringing them in there.
That's
and
crazy.
then has his encounter with God and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the emperor. It's funny how some people's conversion stories go, because you know, he actually prayed to God for victory in a battle, and it happened. He's like, oh, we're Christian now.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get rid of all these other things, and you know, because when you walk around Rome, you still see, you know, the temples and the statues and things, but for the Roman Empire, I mean, Christianity had a role in it, the size of it, you know, just the sheer administrative task of ruling over such a large, massive empire. And I'll say this: the further conquered people were away from Rome, the less they identified as being Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they could ever become Roman citizens, but they didn't identify as being Romans. Because, I mean, think about it. If you're over in, let's go back to Beirut, Lebanon. If you're in Lebanon and you're under control of the Roman Empire, because they controlled that area, and they built massive cities over there, and you're that far away from Rome, you're probably never going to go to Rome in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So what do you identify as? Do you identify yourself as Roman or
Well, it's just, like, I've never been to Washington, D.C. Not that it's unreachable, but just haven't been there.
Your battery went out. Like what you said there, the identity, right? Like, so you start to not have that identity. Well, you look at America now too, and we don't call ourselves American. Jokingly, over in Europe, they say Texans will say they're from Texas.
I do every time.
But most other people say they're from America. But I mean, you look at it. We don't call ourselves Americans anymore. We call ourselves Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't identify in unison.
Yeah, I identify as a Texan first. Well, I identify as a Christ follower first.
Amen.
Texan second, American third. Because, you know, I've mentioned this several times when we go over to places, if we're paired with another group or we see other EF groups, and you run into Europeans, like, where y'all from? Texas.
Yeah.
Where y'all from? Because this happened to us 2 years ago. We were with a group from the Carolinas. We're from North Carolina. Well, we're at North Carolina. So they tell them. So when they say, well, where y'all from? It's like, we're from Texas. Like, oh, man, it's cool. And then later on, they're like, how come they didn't ask where you're from in Texas? And I'm like, because we're Texas. You know, and there was, you know, we were paired with a Massachusetts group. And they were great, man. The kids were great. The adults were great. And one of the girls in their group, one of the kids in their group, was like, well, Texas isn't all that great. I go, do they sell "Don't Mess with Massachusetts" shirts and the stickers? I don't think so. I go, please understand that we were our own country.
Yeah.
If we were our own country again, we'd probably have the 7th or 8th best economy in the entire world. We fly our flag. We can fly our flag at the same height that I said. And after the Civil War, we were asked to rejoin the Union.
Yeah.
We didn't ask. They asked us because we're Texas. And I got news for people. If you're not a Texan, if you're not born here, you're not born and raised in Texas, and you're not a born Texan, and you've lived here a long time, that's fine. We're cool with you. And people are going to disagree with this, but you're not Texan. It's a birthright. But if people ever want to question and don't understand why Texans are so proud, go down to Kerrville.
Yeah.
Go up to Leander.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what HEB does.
Yep.
People
love HEB.
HEB's typically in the southern part of Texas.
Yep.
Has been expanding north, and they are the number one grocery store chain in the entire country.
Yeah.
And they're only in Texas.
They care about their people. They care about their employees.
And you know, there's a certain amount of pride there.
You get stuck on HEB.
Yeah, I was talking about Texan pride, and you know, there was a certain pride, and again, cutting it back to what we're talking about, the Romans. There's a great amount of pride in being Roman.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were in the Roman Empire, that was great. Man, if you were a Roman citizen, like Paul.
Yeah.
Paul was a Roman citizen.
Yeah.
Which granted him a lot of leeway. So let's not shy away from that if we get into a biblical talk here. Let's not.
Paul's Roman citizenship is really interesting too.
Yeah.
He wasn't of Roman descent, but it was granted to him by his parents.
His
right?
parents, yeah.
His parents were granted Roman citizenship by the people they worked for, and so therefore, because Paul was born into that, he was born a Roman citizen,
which got him into places that a non-citizen couldn't get into.
Which only God could use someone like that to work his way.
Yeah, who had gone in and was killing Christians and was the best at it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I got
until you're blind.
I got something else for you. Let me put something over your eyes here. You're going to look inward for a little bit, and again, people don't understand. Being a Roman citizen granted you a lot of privileges in the Roman Empire. Wherever you were in the Roman Empire, if you were a Roman citizen, they're like, oh, you're a Roman citizen. That's pretty cool. Here, like, oh, you're a Texan? Okay. You don't get it. That's fine. We don't make people drink Kool-Aid in this state. My good friend Rob, he's born outside the state. He's like, I've lived here for like 30 some odd years. Well, good for you. I did tell him I made a security guy at the Vatican an honorary Texan because I asked him if I saw so many people taking pictures of the ceiling, if I could rough them up a little bit. He's like, "Where are you from?" Texas. Oh, yeah. Carry on. Go right ahead. I was like, "Sir, you're an honorary Texan for right now." Yeah. But I think it's an interesting comparison with how, if we look at our government the way it is right now and the things that are going on, again, access to this, whether it's information or misinformation, there's a lot of misinformation. I think probably more so now than ever, people are untrusting of the government. Just like near the end of the Western Roman Empire, people didn't trust the government. And I'm sure people then questioned the split of the Roman Empire. And like, oh, we're going to play this out and kind of see how it works. And then as you get further down the road and you see that it's not everything they said it was going to be. So if we look at our elected leaders in this country, I don't care what president it's been. I don't care if it's Trump, Obama, Biden, first Trump, first Bush, Carter, Reagan. These guys, our politicians come in, whether it's a state rep, governor, they promise you certain things, knowing dang well they can't deliver on those, and people are easily duped.
Yeah.
Or look at the distrust people have. If we look at the voucher deal,
I don't know that duped is the right word as much as they just
some people
believe that they can. Some people are, but just that they can believe that all these promises can actually be delivered on.
Well,
when there's so much red tape you got to cross and so much, what's the word? So much bureaucracy, so much of the other side just fighting against. Like, we're no longer bipartisan.
No,
it's
our state used to be
our way or your way. That's all it is now.
Our state used to be, and it quit being bipartisan when Governor Bush left to be president.
Yeah,
because we had a Republican governor, and we had a Democrat lieutenant governor, Bob Bullock, great Texan.
Oh yeah, I remember Bob.
And then the Speaker of the House, and they would meet every week to discuss legislation. And and if it was legislation that was good, that was for the majority of Texans, regardless of who sponsored it, if it was a Republican-sponsored bill, then Bob Bullock would go out and tell the Democrats, "You're going to vote for this." Who's going to tell Bob Bullock no?
And that's
I would also argue that was the end of the bipartisanship in our country as well. Because I do think as much as you can love or hate George Bush Jr., he was always willing to work.
He was working with the other side.
He would
Bob
work
Bullock
with them.
was
I mean, you look him and Obama to this day. They're so friendly towards each other when they're at any event together.
Well,
and that's just how George was raised. It's in my opinion.
George, he was raised here, not born here, but that's all right, George. We still love you. I mean, it's our political ideas in this state shifted with Perry and Dewhurst, and it's funny we mentioned Perry because Perry now is way more palatable for me as a conservative than he was back then.
Is that because of your conservative shift or because of his shift?
No, his shift, and partially mine.
Yeah.
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
He'll never be for legalizing recreational drug use, which I think is very short-sighted and off the mark. But he's also willing to promote the legislation that just got signed into law to help people with PTSD issues. And that's, I mean, for him to come out and speak, don't think for 1 second that did not have a lot to do with that passing in the House and in the Senate and state too. Because regardless of what people think about Rick Perry, there are still a lot of conservatives and Democrats up there that like Rick Perry.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of influence.
He does have a lot of influence. He wasn't so good for the Department of Energy, but he at the national level. But I think as he got a little bit older and kind of moved away from the spotlight of politics.
Yeah,
to where he doesn't. I think we see more of who Rick Perry really is.
Can be a little bit more of an independent thought as opposed to doing what the party wants.
Yeah. Which I think in our state, in Texas, we've always prided ourselves on doing our own thing, and we've become a state that's been manipulated by national parties.
Yeah.
I was watching the guy from Round Rock, James Talarco, whatever it is, I don't know how you say his last name. He's critical of the National Democratic Party. He's the one that spoke out against vouchers, and he spoke out against the Ten Commandments. And as a conservative and a Christian, Christ follower, I don't want the Ten Commandments in my classroom. Yeah. That's not my job.
Yeah.
And you're forcing. Don't force kids to see those things, because that's what turns them off.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tell me,
is that the beginning of a fascist rule, you think?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what brings down empires?
I think in a lot of ways it is. When you force people to do things they don't want to do, that's what builds resentment. I mean, think about it. Do you like being told what to do?
No.
Mm.
Now, if I'm being told what to do, I know James doesn't. But if you're telling me I have to do these things, okay, tell me why.
Right.
So, all right.
Make it make sense.
All right, Lieutenant Dan. You want me to post the Ten Commandments in my classroom. Why? Give me a good reason why, because you sure don't walk the principles of Christianity, of the things that you do and the things that you say and the things that I have read about you and know about you. You don't. And I'm not saying I'm any better, but I'm also not out there pounding the mantle and holding the torch of quote unquote morality and Christianity. Is this something
that the people voted for, or is this a decision they made because people voted for them, they could make it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I think, and we get to it, and we tie it back into Rome and to our country. We have leaders that have been up there for so long that they feel insulated, and that there are no repercussions for what they do,
and they're not representing the people,
and they're not they're representing special interest. All right, Mr. THC Banner, how much money did you get from the alcohol lobby?
Right.
And now you've got some goofy sheriff up in North Texas that's speaking out against THC just like you are. Well, how much money lined his pockets for his reelection campaign? Because sheriffs are elected positions in the state of Texas. Mm. Like, you sound stupid. Do you even know what THC is? Because I got news for people. If I have a dear friend that has diagnosed severe social anxiety, and the only way that they can function is by smoking marijuana here and there. They're not
smoke up, Johnny.
They're not toking up every freaking day. They medicate themselves, and they have to buy it illegally in fear of losing their job if they get arrested.
Well, the point is that they don't want them smoking a joint because they want to sell them a drug.
Yeah, they want to sell them a drug
from a doctor in a pharmacy.
Yep.
And a company that made it who's lining their pockets, and there's nobody from the THC industry lining their pockets.
No, so
at least not enough.
Not enough. It's like
I've always said it'll never be legal here until they can figure out how to profit off it.
Which they can. I mean, they can take Colorado and California and the other 18
examples
states.
are starting to be out there, but we'll still be one of the last.
So younger Republican politicians are getting on board with it. It's the old hairs that remember Nancy Reagan's "Just Say No to Drug" campaign.
Yep.
I got
Dare.
Hey guys.
Boy, how much money was spent on
Just
that?
Say No didn't work. and Nancy Reagan's dead. We can move past that quote-unquote legacy. It's a legacy of failure because a lot of that money could have been spent rounding up. I would rather spend money developing programs and paying for law enforcement to catch rapists, child predators, and getting fentanyl off the streets. Because I personally know families and kids that have died from fentanyl. I'd rather focus on that. That's a bigger issue than THC. But here, so when people say, "Well, what caused the Roman Empire to fall?" You can encapsulate it in one comment: is when leaders are looking out for their own interest as opposed to the people that they are ruling over. And in our country, when politicians are doing things for the betterment of their political party and to get constantly reelected, this is when we start to drop the ball. This is when we start to, and again, as Americans, we need to quit criticizing other countries, whether it's, socialized medicine and quit doing this, because I got news for people. In our country, we have the highest rate of people that will not take time off. People need to travel because, man, in Europe, they know how to take time off.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at most European countries
People
have
relaxed.
Multiple, I think paternity leave. We don't have there's no such thing as paternity leave in America. You get paternity leave. A lot of times it's for a year in Europe. It's insane.
Well, we have companies that offer paternity leave, but it's not paid.
Correct.
So if you're a salary employee,
not even
paid.
FLMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're if you're salary, you can get paid. But, over there, man, when people cut off, this is one thing I marveled about so much in Paris. And Paris, France is not my favorite city. I don't know. For real. It's a beautiful town. It's a beautiful city.
Eiffel Tower over there for my daughter.
Well, I've been there. It's cool. But one thing I was impressed the most about Parisians is when it's time to go out, get off work, they're not sitting around in their office finishing up work for the day. They leave. Yeah. They go home. They typically change clothes, and then they head down to the river. They head down to the Seine, and they stop off somewhere, and they get food. And when we did that riverboat cruise, man, there's people outlining the riverbanks. Man, we saw dance troops, other people dancing, play karaoke.
I think Spain's the same way, isn't it?
Spain's the same way.
Yeah, Spain. They get off early in the afternoon and they party, then they take a nap, siesta,
they nap,
and then they continue on
do the same thing,
whining and dining into the evening.
We were in some towns, because we were in smaller towns this summer. We were in some small towns where, man, if you haven't eaten before 2 o'clock, good luck. You have to be in a very touristy spot for those spots to be open. And is their quality of life better? Yeah, probably so. We're such a high stress, high pressure society here, and a lot of people out there banging their heads, constantly worried about. People worry about the wrong things here. Pay attention to what's happening politically, but focus on your family.
When I saw something, and they make it hard because I saw something the other day that said, I think to just be able to feel like you're comfortable now, you have to make $95,000 a year. Nearly 6 figures you have to make just to feel like you can live everyday life. And that's pretty wild if you think about it. Inflation has gotten absolutely crazy, and there's distrust everywhere.
Oh yeah, and look at this.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. So one of my questions before we move on to that was, when Rome started to, I guess, lose control of the citizenry, and were they in a period where they were tightening the rules, putting in more restrictions, becoming more Christian maybe, and or was it just so out of control they couldn't control anything anymore?
It says characterized by once the internal decay, and external pressures. Romulus Augustus was deposed.
Yeah, because you had fighting still of external sources, like you said, but then you also had them, like I said earlier, Romans attacking Romans.
You had internal issues. You had political instability, economic decline. Economic decline because the uneven split of the empire, and then the social strain. because the Western Roman Empire could no longer support the social services that they were required to administer to their people because they didn't have the money.
Kind of like, being $36 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
Like the United States.
Because the Western
is
Roman
right now.
Empire was
We're just printing money to give away.
was pretty agrarian. They were pretty agricultural based.
Yeah.
And so when the Western Empire collapsed, what's funny is when we go around through Italy and you see these small towns, and you see these towns that are up on hills, okay? Those go all the way back to the fall of Rome, Western Roman Empire, because that's manorialism. That's manorialism. That's feudalism. That's where feudalism starts, right there. And this happened all over, in other parts of Western Europe, specifically in Rome, because all the parts that were in the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, that when it collapsed, end up in manorialism.
Yeah.
They end up with their own separate principality. You had the Papal States, because Rome was still, and I think people think, well, Rome collapsed. I mean, they burned it down, they sacked it, and there was nothing left. No, Rome was still Rome. It was part of the Papal States. And so you had, I think there was like 10 or 12 different Papal States that were under the control of the Pope.
Yeah, it wasn't like Israel, where Israel just disappeared off the map for decades.
And was known as Palestine.
Yeah.
But it was never its own country.
Right.
There's never been a Palestinian state ruled by the Palestinians.
Right.
So it's, again, history's so important. And I get, I've never been the best history teacher, and I'm still not. Like, I know my stuff. Finding ways to communicate it that's interesting to kids is always the difficult part. But for all those people to say history was, I hated history in high school, I hated it, I wasn't good at it. Well, you had a crappy teacher.
Mm-hmm.
More than likely,
it was a coach.
It was a coach that was more interested in coaching their sport and would give you worksheets. And every now and then you did a crossword puzzle where you filled in the blanks on the worksheets, and you never really learned anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate history too, exactly. and I had a few of those.
I did too. And when he would wheel in that cart and turn on the documentary video to watch, I'd be like,
I get to watch a movie today.
See, we were fortunate because we got to have. I remember one specifically. Like, one of my favorite things in history was the projects. Like, you got to go and do the research and stuff like that. And so it's funny that you brought up Hitler earlier, because I often think, and I learned this because of my history class, I often think, I was like, man, what if the art school of Austria had just accepted Hitler? Like, what would have happened? But if you go back and look at some of Adolf Hitler's art, and I don't know if you want to pull some up, he was a really
good artist.
Damn good artist. But he, like, you think, how did he not get into this art school?
He couldn't meet the standards.
Correct.
He didn't meet the standards that were in place.
But it's like, had I not done that project when I was in my history class, I never would have even known that Hitler was an artist.
Well, and he designed a lot of buildings that were built there. Well, there he is right there. He ruined that mustache style.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, you throw that up today, and it's
good.
Like, and that's a painting. Like, but
yeah.
Wonder how much meth he was on when he.
Well, back then probably not. It wasn't until after the mustard gas. When he had the impact of the mustard gas.
There you go, Mother Mary with
at the end of the war.
Wow.
Yeah, he could he could draw. He just couldn't meet the standards needed to get into art school.
Yeah.
So look at that.
That's an interesting theory, though.
I mean,
what if he had gotten accepted?
Well, and like you said, there was other political parties that had the same ideological. He was just able to get.
He was a better speaker.
He was able to get the people behind him more.
Yeah, he was a better speaker. Look at that. That'd be pretty cool. Those are areas where your average person can't get into.
And I think that's what a lot of people's concern is about Trump. When they look at that and they say, when they compare him to Nazi Germany and stuff like that, it's like, is he just a better speaker that's getting these people rallied up behind him? Which I don't I don't believe that.
He's
but
not a
It,
good.
it
but
might be
he's
for some people, though. I mean, there might be some
entertainer.
People who,
He's an
an entertainer.
Yeah.
He's not
Yes.
that great of a speaker.
Yeah.
because, like I said, 50 to 60% of people
because
don't really pay
he puts his own
attention
foot
to
in his
stuff.
mouth a lot of times.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
He's and he says things that people want to hear.
mm-hmm.
He is a good political non-politician.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
one could almost say, when
The salesman.
you've become a president, and then you're out, and then you're president again, that makes you a politician.
Yeah.
He's not as deeply entrenched as
Yeah.
the others are, but he's still a
I
politician.
think he's getting there, though.
Well,
yeah, he didn't go through all the work your way up through the government like they did.
yeah. Well,
You know.
but I think it's an unfair and a dangerous comparison when you compare ICE to Nazis. Nazis killed Jewish people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
with the intent and purpose of destroying the Jewish population,
removing them from the
removing
earth.
From the earth. It's like the two people I talked to in Turin. Well, we're protesting the genocide in Gaza. I go, oh, you mean the war? I said, what is genocide? And they didn't have an answer for it.
Yeah.
So well, let this hick from Texas tell you about what genocide is. I said, is that what's going on over there? They go, kinda. I said, no, it's a yes or no question. Because it's not kind of genocide. It's either genocide or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And genocide typically happens during conflict. Or, I'll tell you what continents had more genocide? It's definitely not Europe. Africa.
Oh, yeah.
There's African history again. There's been way more
Rwanda.
genocide, tribal genocide in Africa has happened more frequently in the 20th and 21st century.
Yeah, still today.
It's still today. The
Mm.
20th and 21st
Yeah, it's really
centuries.
sad.
When I don't know if you know much about African history. The
Not as much as I should.
the
No.
Hutus and the Tutsis.
Yeah.
I think
That was in the
I think
90s,
that's in
wasn't it?
Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Wasn't that in the 90s?
Yeah.
Was that during Clinton?
800 look at and look at the time period. April to July
Of 94.
of 94. 800,000 to 1 million people.
But it's not the Holocaust.
That's
That's pretty close.
It's not. It's not a sexy history.
yeah, but
lesson.
April and it's Africa.
Yeah, that's why.
They don't look like us.
Yeah.
They're human beings.
Right.
April,
Do you think part of
May,
that?
June, July. And
Do you think
4
part of that is we
months.
don't like to pull attention to Africa as Americans because of the slavery issue?
Guilt. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah,
but-
and we and
or
I
it's
think
not convenient and there's not enough resources over there for us to go help them. Like, they don't,
Mhm.
what are we going to, they don't have oil for us to go get, or when they got diamonds, right?
Oh, be careful there, James.
That's true. I'm just saying.
there's a couple African countries
They're-
that have.
they're-
Well, yeah, but the
We've
diamond
stepped
part of
in.
it, even blood diamonds, like that's all.
That's
That's
true.
all looked at so negatively.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, do we just not talk about it because
It's not
of
convenient.
the stigma? It's not convenient. It's too.
Well, and a lot of these places are considered backwater.
Mm-hmm.
Backwater republics, and again, encourage people.
If we're moral enough to step in to save the Jews, why wouldn't we be moral enough as a country and use our military to step in?
I
and
mean,
save
we
them?
did vow after World War II to prevent genocide from ever happening again, and
1994.
it's happening. Well, I
Or
mean,
the
yeah,
you
Uyghurs
want to
and
take the
China.
Still
if you want to
happening.
take the context of just the continent of Africa out, look at what happened in the Baltic states, Bosnia Herzegovina, Serbia. Look at Slobodan Milosevic. Why was he on
Mhm.
trial? Crimes against humanity, genocide, Holocaust, because he was trying to kill Serbs and he was trying to kill as many people as he could of a certain ethnicity because he didn't like them, and didn't feel bad about it after he got arrested and died of a heart attack in custody before his trial was over, or died of cancer or something like that. I mean,
good old heart attack
yeah. So, I mean,
or
yeah. I mean, look. So yeah, this is where it starts. Triggered on April 6th of 1994 when President Habyarimana's plane was shot down near Kigali, killing him and the president of Burundi. And so over in that country, they have acronyms for their political interest. and they don't like each other. And so anybody that would draw political boundaries that includes these two rival tribes in the same country is an idiot. That's you, Europe, by the way. That's you. So look up who, it's Rwanda, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see who colonized Rwanda.
It was the British,
I
wasn't
think
it?
it was the British.
Yeah, I think so. Germany.
And then
And
later
then
Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah, there they are. The good
The
old
Belgians.
Belgians. Man.
Congo,
Belgians.
Rwanda.
People don't realize the Belgians had a large presence.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Until
In-
1962.
They had a large presence in Africa. So
I think about the extent of what I learned about
And
the
then-
Belgians was that they have delicious waffles.
Mhm.
You know, other than that,
and
Yeah.
chocolate. And they're
Sometimes
and
shaped like
chocolate,
Texas
yeah.
at the
But
hotel
look-
you stayed at.
So, in Belgium, they. So let's see. Yeah. After World War One, Belgium occupied Rwanda. After the war, the League of Nations granted Belgium a mandate to govern Rwanda.
So I'm
Well,
gonna.
did anybody ask Rwanda and Burundi if they wanted Belgium to come in there?
So
Hey,
I'm gonna.
nothing against you Belgians, but
I want to point this in just like a slightly off-topic direction and say, because I know we mentioned it a couple times about not people who don't like history just didn't have a good teacher. How do you get people to be interested in learning these things now to help keep from maybe what happened to Rome happened to America, to start learning from their history? How do you make Americans want to learn history? To actually be aware of these things.
that's
You
that's
take the cell phone out of their hand,
well, I think that's part of it, but
making an app.
you have to make it
into a game.
interesting to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I can only talk about what I do in my class, and we watch, because I teach AP World History. We watch a lot of Heimler's history, and he presents visuals. So kids today are visual learners.
Yeah,
in large
15
part
seconds
because-
on TikTok. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So you find reputable sources like Heimler, who even the College Board recognizes Heimler as being really good with what he does. He does stuff for AP Econ, AP Government, AP World History, AP US, AP World Geography. He does it all. And also using outside sources and make it relevant to today. Again, I'm a big Anthony Bourdain guy, and I think it's important, you know, to show kids the things that we've talked about. And the Congo episode, where he literally is narrating
Mhm.
about the impact the Belgians had on the Congo, and there are rival political interests in the Congo, but they are all steadfast in their hatred of Belgium.
Do you think Bourdain, the demons that he dealt with, had to deal with the fact that he saw all of these horrific things and learned all these horrific things and just
I don't think so.
No?
Not based on what I've seen. He had issues dating all the way back to when he was a child.
okay?
You know, growing up, and you know, early on he was addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
and which is, you know, for people that don't understand the chef industry, there's a big
Mhm.
drug issue in drugs and
The
with
restaurant
that
industry in
industry in
general.
general.
Yeah.
And you know, he spent time growing up in France. You know, he's very open about his mental struggles, his
Yeah.
emotional struggles in his books, and you know, battling depression, things like that. And
Mhm.
I just can't imagine learning all those things could have helped though.
I think that stuff helped him. He does such a great job of telling the stories of these
Yeah.
places, and you know, I'm a firm believer in that. You want to learn the history of a place, get into their food,
Oh yeah,
because you know, when you go to Italy and you eat pasta and it has a tomato-based sauce. Where do tomatoes come from originally? Do y'all know?
not Rome, not that area.
They weren't from Europe.
Yeah,
It's called the Columbian Exchange.
Hmm.
yeah. There was
Potatoes are not native to Ireland.
Yeah.
That's the Columbian Exchange.
Interesting.
The Columbian Exchange introduced so many products from, and you know, the Americas got things from Europe, like cattle, horses, things like that, pigs,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. Oh, good old Christopher Columbus. You're such a great guy, Chris.
Good old Chris.
Yeah, there's the go back
Right, that
up
top section. Yeah.
from the Americas to the Old World. Corn, potatoes, tomatoes, cacao, tobacco. Yeah. Potatoes became a staple in Europe. When potatoes were introduced to Europe, guess what happened to the population? And when the potato famine hit Ireland, guess what happened to the population? And guess where those people from Ireland came? United States.
That's right. Yeah, the Great Potato Famine.
And again, hey, Americans, for those of y'all that don't know, the Transcontinental Railroad and a lot of the infrastructure of this country were built by Chinese and Irish immigrants being paid pennies on the dollar because they weren't considered to be educated enough to do anything else.
Yeah.
So I got news for people that think our history is this great thing. It's not. We have one of the biggest black eyes of any country on the face of the earth, and we've had a bigger black eye in a shorter amount of time. We are one, and I love America. Don't get me wrong, but we are the most hypocritical countries that's out there because we love to tell people, you need to quit doing this and you need to quit doing that, while we have a big plank sticking out of our eye.
Oh, it's
embarrassing. And most people around the world couldn't give a crap about what's happening in this country. I'll tell you what they do is they sit back and they laugh at us. They laugh at us because we walked around with our chest in the air, chest so high, and our nose so high for so long. And now we're having political issues and internal issues like all these other countries around the world. And if you clowns would pay attention in history class, you would know this.
Come on.
And it wouldn't surprise you.
Preach, Coach.
No, it gets me wired up. And again, I come from a different perspective because I do have a degree in history. And I had some amazing professors in college that were like some of the best people I'm honored to have gotten to know by having them be my teacher and learned so much from them. But I've also taken their advice and gone out and learned things on my own. And again, I thank Rob Rush so much for getting me to go on these trips.
You gotta get Rob out in here on a
I need to get Rob in here sometime. I mean, he had a Coke bottle in one of our restaurants this year that they brought it out. It had on the name, it had the best. And he goes, "Look at this," and I go, "That's a lie." That's a lie. I said, "You're good, but you're not the best." So it's been a source of discussion since we got back. But you know, it's like I just asked you guys. Y'all know where tomatoes came from? How did tomatoes get introduced to the old world? Y'all didn't know the Columbian Exchange.
Well, I'd heard of the Columbian Exchange, but that's something you
I knew they weren't local
in high school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something
That's
you
a
learn
geography.
About.
That's a world geography
and
deal.
you never hear of it again, maybe. But
Well, I've done a project. I've done a project in my on-level class for Silk Road and the Columbian Exchange, where they had to develop a 3-course menu with products that originated from the Columbian Exchange.
I think so much of it is because when we get taught it, we focus so much on sugarcane and tobacco, and then you forget about all the other stuff.
And slave trade.
Yeah, because all of that's related. Because we focus so much of our energy and history on slavery, and it's like,
Yeah, because look at the impact of the Columbian Exchange. American gold and silver. So the discovery of gold and silver ruined Silk Road trade for the Africans, because guess where gold and silver came from before Columbian Exchange, before the discovery of the Americas? Africa. So when Asian markets and Europeans could now get gold and silver from the Americas, that ruins the basis of trade for Africa.
And destroyed their economy.
And so guess what they turned to? Slave trade. Which slavery had been on the continent of Africa for centuries as a way of paying off debts, and if you were conquered, but mainly to pay off debts, and was introduced for profit by European merchants.
when you even circle that back to the Bible, that's biblical slavery. It was all about that.
Indentured servants and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Jacob. Jacob went and worked for 7 years to get what he thought was Rachel, but then ended up being Leah. So then he's like, oh, 7 more years for Rachel. You know, it's like, that's how you did things.
That's how they did things back then. And again, there are ways of presenting material to students that will interest them, and outside of the normal things they want to talk about, because they want to know about the Holocaust. Okay, well then go on one of my trips, because I've been to Dachau, and in 2 years I'll go to Auschwitz-Birkenau. So I mean,
that's gonna be heavy.
Dachau was really heavy.
Yeah,
and because whenever World War II was over, the people of Dachau and the German government wanted to disassemble Dachau, because Dachau is right by the city.
Yeah,
it's like right there. It's like, here's Dachau and here's the city, and it was the blueprint for all death camps that were built in Poland and Germany. It was the blueprint. So whatever didn't work there, they improved upon and built the new camp. So they never used the gas chambers at Dachau, but they're there, because I walked through one to get to the crematorium. It's crazy, man. And again, I'm from Sulphur Springs, freaking Texas, and I've been more places in Europe than I've been in the States now.
Wow.
Thanks, Rob. I mean, like, I'll be able to tell people after 2 years, I'll have been to 2 of the biggest concentration camps that existed during World War II. And again, when we left Dachau, man, Germany's such a beautiful country too. When we left Dachau, the mood on the bus was somber.
I can imagine. People
were struggling. Because we get on the bus, and our tour director, Tom, he goes, how many of y'all learned something? Everybody raised their hand. I'm sitting there like this, because I already knew all this stuff. And you know, the guy that founded the Holocaust Museum in Dallas came and spoke to our class. He survived Dachau and Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Yeah.
Met the doctor of death, Dr. Mengele. When he got transferred to Auschwitz, he was standing there pulling out the twins.
I think especially in America, like we've gone away from,
we have no concept of that.
Just learning in general. Like we give up on learning. Right. Like if once you go through your college and all that stuff, it's like, okay, now I got to go into the workforce. I got to make money, and we don't spend. That's overgeneralizing. But just
you're
a lot of people don't. But they don't have curious minds to want to know, I guess.
Well, and I'd tell the kid,
not affected by it.
High school's a big game. High school's a joke.
Yeah.
You know, when did you graduate?
I graduated 2004. I mean,
you're young, dude.
But you got to look. You know, Rockefeller, when he institutionalized.
Was he even born when Ross Perot ran for president?
I was so.
You had to have been.
Yeah. I remember Dad. I remember Dad talking about him in the 90s. When Rockefeller, you know, he basically created what is still our current education
system
because he wanted to have people to come work in warehouses.
He wanted educated workers.
He wanted educated workers, but it's not the same education. Like even if you look back at the Israelites, like the Israelites knew their history because they studied the scriptures until they were 12 years old. And if you were good enough, you got to go study under a rabbi. If you weren't, you went to your dad's trade. But you were educated. They put importance on the education in Judaism, and in Rome, they put importance on education. We put importance on it, but not for the same reasons. Not to know our history, not to know where we come from or where we're headed to.
And we teach a skewed version of history. We teach a politicized version
Very
of history.
Politicized.
You know, Dr. Rudolph, we talked about this when I was on your podcast. Dr. Rudolph in college, agnostic Jew, whose family was decimated. They were Polish, decimated by the Holocaust, and gets to the United States and causes him to question his Jewish faith. This is what he challenged us to do: is if we're going to teach history, warts and all.
Yeah.
He goes, man, and I won't repeat what he said in class, but it was basically F the politicians. Your job is to teach history. He goes, and you will be in places where they will not want you to do that, and you'll be in places that they won't let you do that. And I'm committed to doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm near the end of my career. What are they going? I'll go work at Home Depot, man.
Here in Austin,
you and me both.
There was such a push years ago, and I'm sure it's still going on, but I just remember like the changing of the street names, the tearing down of the statues, all of these different things just
history.
because they were Confederate.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
you're literally rewriting history,
Whitewash it.
and whitewashing
It's whitewashing. It's
Yeah.
not rewriting. It's covering it up. It's
Yeah.
like we in our state we can't talk about American interventionism in Central and Latin American politics as imperialism, but that's what it is.
There was a video I saw, and it just speaks to this just so well. It was a lady who was trying to quote Albert Einstein.
Einstein.
And I'm like, are we really that far away? Like, that's not even 200 years ago.
Wow.
Like, that's early 1900s, right? That was Einstein. Yeah, it's
40s?
like, it's like,
he was involved in the H bombs.
yeah, it's like,
He was a physicist. He was a pretty smart
it's
guy.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Manhattan
stutter.
Project stuff.
Yeah, so we're you know, there are so many things that happen, you know, whenever, and I feel bad for young people today because you get a much more watered down version of what education really is. And again, in my class, I do tell them, you know, that high school is a game. You got to learn how to play the game. They go, what do you mean it's a game? I go, well, so right now this is your job. Well, I don't get paid. I go, you don't? You get grades.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make the right kind of grades, you get promoted. And then when you get promoted enough, you graduate. I said, so come up to school, learn how to play the game. Keep your freaking mouth shut. Quit being a behavior problem. Come in here, do what you have to do. I don't care if you do the bare minimum. Come in and do what you want to do. Do your stuff. Turn your stuff in so you can get your grades, get your credits, get out. And somewhere along the way, there's going to be something that happens that's going to catch your interest. The hope is. It doesn't always happen. Because I tell my kids in history, I hate history. Okay, what do you hate about it? I just don't like it. Okay, can you be more specific? Well, it's boring. Okay, well, what do you like? Well, I had this happen when I was at another school. Well, what do you like?
Call of Duty.
Well, they skateboarding.
Hey, guess what? Call of Duty is based on history, y'all.
Yeah, it's like skateboarding.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I said, so between now and next week, you have the weekend. Come back on Monday, and I want you to tell me what you've learned about skateboarding. He comes in, and man, he's got notes written down about where it started, how it got started, and this and all the, you know, like Tony Hawk and all these people. And I was like,
that's history.
So you do like history.
I said, so you do like history, right? I said, you know what that is? He goes, what? I said, the history of skateboarding.
Bam.
And he goes,
and that's when the light bulb goes
and he goes,
off.
oh, you tricked me. I go, yeah. I said, so somewhere along the way, there are going to be things that you're interested in.
Yeah.
That, and I wasn't doing trips back then. You know, that you're going to be interested in, that are going to catch your eye, and you're going to learn more about them. And I said, I don't know what those things are. And it may not be in this class, maybe in the next class, maybe your senior year. Because I'm going to be in a fortunate position this year where I'm still teaching AP World History, but I'm also going to be teaching economics. So the kids that I had in on-level world history, I might have them this year. And I'm going to encourage them because this summer, several of the kids on my trip were my students this past year. So when we're at a farm outside of Turin, we did our farm tour. We had a really good meal there. Had some really good wine there too. Then the owner of the farm comes out and goes, "Sir, would you like some wine?" Please. Yeah. What is that? It's red. I'll take red.
The other guy gave me bourbon. I like wine too.
Yeah, we like that. We like it all. So we're in this house, and he's telling a story about some of the paintings are on the walls that were done by the people that established the farm way back then. And he goes, y'all know who named the Americas, right? And one of my kids turns around and goes, wasn't that Vespucci? I go, yeah, Amerigo Vespucci. And they're like, after we walked out of the house, I never thought that'd come in handy. I said, you never know. you never know, because when we're walking, and you're walking around the Vatican, there is a hallway.
I love how unconfident they were, though. They were just like, isn't it?
Amerigo Vespucci.
Right?
And so, because he mentioned, he goes, anybody know who Amerigo Vespucci is? My kids raise their hand. I go, y'all better raise your hand. I'll send you home right now.
20 push-ups if you
yeah, 20 push-ups each. You're going to do some bear crawls out there with the cows. But it's funny because, you know, when we're walking around these cities and towns that have historical significance of things we talked about, it's visual and it's tangible. Because when we're in the Vatican, we had to split up in 2 different groups. So I think a lot of my kids were with the other group. There's a hallway. It's a long hallway of nothing but maps.
Do they call it the Hall of Maps?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I posted some pictures on my Facebook. I posted a lot of pictures, but Hall of Maps, Vatican.
I'm fortunate because we were still young enough when we were kids that, we had to use the old Rand McNally maps on the road trips and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't always have the GPS, and so every now and then I'll still kind of come back. I'll go and I'll just throw the map up on and just kind of look at the roads. I won't have a GPS set. I'll just look at the roads. Let's use a map.
Gallery of Maps.
I think it's the gallery. It's the Hall of Maps. They're all tapestries. They're on the wall.
That's wild.
Oh, this is not it?
That's it. Yeah, you see them. That's showing the ceiling because the ceiling's very ornate. Yeah, look at Italy right there. Those are the maps. Those are tapestries, and those are
Yeah. Wow.
Those are mosaics, and they even drew the waves. Look at that.
It used to be a craft. It used to be a big craft.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? Lewis and Clark. Yeah.
Cartography.
Yeah.
All of that.
So we're walking down this hallway.
These are tapestries.
I mean,
how old is this?
I have no idea.
Centuries
it's old because that's a tapestry. So as I'm walking down the hall, I'm taking pictures. So to take pictures on the left, I have to veer off to the right to get it in my screen on my phone. And I'm doing this. I'm zigzagging, taking pictures. I'm just walking. I'm not even aiming. I'm just taking pictures of the maps and then you get down to the end. Yeah. That's twice I've been in there. It's really cool. I mean, I mean, just look at that. So you think about it. If you're a kid from Seguin,
we
Texas.
don't have stuff like that here.
No. If you're a kid from Seguin, Texas, and all you know is Seguin, or all you know is Canyon High School or Bowie High School, you know South Austin, or Kyle or Buda. Look at the mountains. Is that all you know? And then all of a sudden you decide to go on a trip, and you're walking around Italy, and you're in the Vatican, the bastion of Catholicism, which is kind of weird. Kind of have to hose yourself off after you leave there. Sorry, Catholics, but your religion. Sorry. Look at the pictures. Look at the paint. Look at the detail. And you get to walk around. You get to see these things. And then you end up in the Sistine Chapel. And again,
and you come back here and you've got Target.
Yeah. So
Kohl's.
Look up real quick.
It's like we went down to Bandera.
Look up when the Sistine Chapel was painted.
We went down to Bandera on the way to Camp 145, and we're literally walking through downtown Main Street Bandera.
Yeah, the cowboy capital of Texas.
Yeah, my wife was like, I expected things to look older. And it's we just don't, we get this image online, and it's we really don't have anything that old here.
Mm-mm.
And when we do, we rebuild over it.
Mm-hmm.
And architecture is not designed the same way as it used to be. It used to be designed as fortresses, and it used to be designed as security. Now it's just designed to throw it up faster, and
there's no aesthetic purpose.
All right, so
start making money off it.
1483, completed in 1482, right? So when did we say the Western Roman Empire collapsed?
Third century?
Huh?
300?
In the third century?
Late 300s?
All right, and so
34th.
Yeah.
476.
Signs of decline ended in 76.
Okay, and then look up Papal States. I'm trying to prove something here. All right, so look at Tuscany. Tuscany did their own thing. Yeah, I love the Tuscans. The Tuscany's awesome. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, so there's all the Papal States up here. So keep in mind that when the Western Roman Empire collapsed and we have Minoralism, we still have the Papal States, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a collection of areas. And Bologna's part of it, because in Bologna, the church that's built there is owned by the people.
Oh,
was not commissioned by the church, and they wanted to make that church better than St. Peter's Basilica.
Mm.
And the Pope was like, we're not doing that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's amazing inside there. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. It's big, it's freaking huge, and they've established a timeline on the floor anyway. But look at the Papal States. So if it wasn't for the Papal States, I mean, who's to say the Sistine Chapel will even be around today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because whenever you think about it, when the Western Roman Empire collapsed and people fled the cities out into the countryside for protection, and they start living on the manors, and we started implementing feudalism, where you have feudal lords and you have principalities, you have vices or kingdoms and things like that, and then you had the Papal States. The Papal States are under control of Rome, and then they have people in charge of the Papal States, but still under the direction of the Pope in Rome, because the Pope had already transitioned into more of a secular leader as opposed to religious leader. He wore two hats. So whenever you think about it, and then again, I don't know that Tuscany wasn't a part of the Papal States, but in Florence you had the Medicis, and they were Catholic, and they had a direct line to the Pope. So you almost assume that Tuscany received a certain level of protection from, because as we're driving from Florence down to Rome on their road, their highway system, we are passing communities that are up on hills that date all the way back to the Middle Ages.
That's wild.
That were not, because they weren't Papal States, but they were communities that were established originally under feudalism.
It's crazy to think that while Christianity had its part in the fall, it also then kind of helped save Rome in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because of the Vatican.
Yeah,
that's I guess another part of the reason why the Pope ended up getting so much political power in Rome.
Yeah,
because there's a power vacuum. You no longer have emperor, whoever that was.
So that's a good way to land the plane on all this, is that question right there. These two questions. Can the U.S. avoid Rome's fate through democratic reforms or technological innovation? And what role do citizens play in sustaining or undermining an empire's stability? Do you think we're in a decline here in the United States to follow the empire? Do you think that's possible? We're so far in debt. I mean, when countries go into debt like that, they're beholden to other countries already economically.
Well, it's also in the best interest of other countries that the U.S. not collapse.
Yeah.
Because we are so, other than North Korea, every country is connected economically, and those economic ties are so important. And I think that's I don't. So
could we become a collection of papal states kind of thing?
No,
but just individual states.
I don't think so.
North, south, east, west again.
And I don't think it's going to be democratic reforms or technological innovation.
No,
I think it's I think it's going to be something way simpler than that. I think it's going to be an uprising of people who are just fed up with the status quo, and it's like, you know what, we're going to look for we're going to elect people into power. People are going to finally take back control of the electorate. We're going to put people in power. They're going to do what the people need them to do, and when they prove to be ineffective, just like politics should be, when people prove ineffective, we're going to vote them out of office, because the whole idea of career politicians.
But
well, see, and that's the whole thing, is people have been screaming for a long time about like term limits and stuff like that. But
we tried that.
But when you have the people in place, in charge of making those changes,
but look up
that
quick.
Are already lifetime politicians, how do you make that change?
Look this up real quick. How many states are asking for a constitutional amendment for term limits?
But is that on the state level or on the federal level?
Well, the states have to. It's a federal issue, but it has to be brought about by the states. It has to be a constitutional amendment. 12 states have stepped up. So look, states Florida, Alabama, Missouri, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Tennessee, all those states have passed resolutions that include congressional term limits as part of a broader application though these are not single subject term limit resolutions, to call a constitutional convention. 34 states are required. I got news for people. That number 34, there are more states that are looking at doing this to where, so what has to happen for a constitutional convention? There are several different ways. So look up real quick how to add a constitutional amendment. How to get a constitutional convention. Federal level. Because I think there's 3 ways if I remember. I haven't taught government in so long. The easiest way is 3/4 of the state legislatures pass a resolution asking for a constitutional convention. Yeah, there we go.
34 out of 50?
Yeah. Congress's role in calling the convention. Upon receiving applications from 34 states, Congress constitutionally obligated. I personally think that, again, if we're relying on legislatures to pass laws that limit their job and how long they can have it, because I mean, look at our state. Should John Cornyn have been up there this long? No. Should
2 decades now?
Should
right?
Lloyd Doggett have been up there this long? And I like Lloyd Doggett. He's not 100% bad, but he's not 100% great.
Don't these positions also have lifetime payments? Just like
Yeah.
So it's
after if you serve a certain number of terms, but
right.
Because I mean, once you get elected, because in the House they have to run every 2 years.
Yeah.
In the Senate, 6 years.
Yeah.
So, once you get in,
you're in.
I mean, you almost have like a golden parachute. You can be like, that Cortez lady who got in and had to ask people to help get her an apartment, get her set up, and now she's worth several $1 million.
Yeah, and then that's where so much conflict comes from too, because then you ask yourself, how does that happen?
Well, and
if you're only making this fixed income, how does that happen?
Yeah, and I think that's part of, as people start to realize what's going on, that's what's causing states to. I mean, if Florida is part of that group of 12, people can crank on Florida as much as they want to, but Florida is also a state that's a litmus test for policies that other states follow. Yeah. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that because
California and Florida both, really, and Texas.
Texas is in there too. For a long time, Texans did what was best for Texans. We were kind of an anomaly. But as we become more partisan at the state level in politics, we tend to follow the guise of what other states are asking us to do. I don't think the U.S. is headed towards a collapse like on the stage, like something with the Roman Empire. But I do believe we're getting to a point to where the electorate's going to become more educated on their vote, and more people are going to start voting. I mean, again, for whatever side of the fence you're on, how many more Joe Bidens and
George Bushes
and Bill Clintons and Barack Obamas and Donald Trumps are people on the stomach? And at the end of the day, who cares who the president is? You fools out there.
Put too much power on it.
Well, they put too much emphasis on it.
Right. I mean, we as a general public.
Put way too much emphasis on that. Pay more
personality.
Pay more attention to who your state senators are, your U.S. senators are, your members of the House of Representatives are. Pay more attention to who your state reps are, and pay more attention to who your city council members are and your school board members are, and quit voting for if you complain about your school district, run for school board. Yeah. Or vote for, if you've been on the school board for this number of years.
Or homeschool.
Yeah. Well, Ashley's doing that. Ashley's awesome.
A lot of people are doing
that's our plan right now.
Ashley's doing
some big changes happen. That's our plan.
We got someone you can talk to.
Yeah.
We hook you up with Ashley Payne because, man, Ashley and her husband they're doing a great job with their kids. And her kids I have never met her kids in person, but just seeing the videos she posts, her kids are so stinking happy right now.
Yeah.
Like each other's biggest supporter, and they're each other's best friends, and that's what you want your kids to be. And Ashley, big shout out to you. I love you to death, girl. You're just awesome. So she's a good person to talk to. But I think for our government, It's going to be a change from within. We have a rising group of politicians that are, whether they're Democrat or Republicans, that are not happy with their national party, that their national parties have lost the way, they've lost their way, and there's going to be some changes coming. It's not going to be quick, but it's going to be steady and sure.
Let me ask this in a different way. Rather than a fall, there's obviously been this thought of a push towards a global economy and global world order. Do you think it's more likely to go that direction before we can make a resolution, or?
Yeah, what happens then?
That's a good question. I think we've already got a global economy, minus North Korea, because look what happened when COVID.
Yeah.
Look what happened when raw materials dissipated. I mean, think about it. Used car prices.
We found out 90% of our medicines were being manufactured in China.
Used car prices went through the roof because they didn't have chips to put in the new cars, because the chips were made from silica, and the silica mines shut down, and so the supply of silica dwindled. And so when there's no silica, and so depending on when countries open back up, dictated when that silica, and when your silica is mined, then you got to get it shipped over. I mean, look what happens.
It's like the pencil analogy.
Yeah.
Like how many different countries does it take to make one pencil?
Yeah.
Yeah, and look what happened when Suez Canal got blocked. Look what happened to supply chains.
Yeah.
So we're already at the global economy. I don't think we'll ever have a global leadership. That's like a Star Trek, type of thing. What was their whole group called? I don't know.
I would.
The Federation.
Too many.
I would
the
just say
Federation.
we already
Too many
have-
individual.
Yeah.
We have global leadership
Yeah.
already. With, if you got a nuke, you're in charge, at least of something. If you got nuclear weapons, you have a seat at the table.
Well, and that kind of opens
there's
up a
nine
whole
countries now that are in charge, basically,
and
the rest of the 160.
And the question with that comes in, and again, this is where we like to put our chest out and we like to put our nose up in the air. What country is the only one to ever use atomic weapons? United States of America. So we're really quick to say, oh, we don't want you can't have it, you can't have it, nobody should have it.
When you look at even a country threatening it, say what you will about Trump, but look how fast he tried to shut that down.
Yeah.
And we don't know for sure how effective that was or not.
We don't know. We don't know.
And we don't even know if it was necessary.
We don't know.
And we'll probably never know.
What was the other question? I personally think it's going to be something from within. It's going to be a grassroots movement.
The sustainability. What role do citizens play in sustaining or undermining an empire's stability? Like, I guess as a whole, as a mass, that's what protests are about. You get enough people protesting, you can. And now a lot of that protesting and change is being done online. If you protest enough people get loud enough online, they're listening and they'll make changes. They've already done it in this administration. Maybe not the last one.
I think educated protest.
Not what we're seeing like a riot protest.
Educated protests are more effective than people just out there yelling and screaming, because you don't like to be yelled and screamed at. I don't. You don't.
I hate it.
And that was kind of the point. Talking to those people in Turin. Yeah. The guy got extremely animated and started getting loud. I was like, bro, why are you being so loud, man? Why are you getting so animated? I'm just asking you some questions. Man, it's hard for me to take you seriously when you get, when people get so triggered. And so I think when people can have frank and honest discussions about things, and Terry, that's part of what Terry does. Is Terry posts questions for people to have conversations about, and Terry Lee's misunderstood.
Do you think we can get back to that? Because I don't think we're at a point in America where there are factions that can have those conversations. That can have those. Want to, and there's people pushing for it. But there's so many squeaky wheels on both sides.
There's a lot of squeaky wheels.
That just
we each know squeaky wheels.
That literally just will not even have, like, they won't even listen.
Well,
let's be in my own family that are like.
And let's be fair. There's squeaky wheels on both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think if we can get to a point to where we take political ideology out of the equation, and put it in the human component, and I'll say this, and again, I may not. Have a whole lot of cred on this, but if we approach it from a standpoint of what would Jesus want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
If we're, how many
Approach it from a standpoint of love.
Well, yeah, how many people do we
Yeah, that's
know that identify as Christ followers get worked up and upset about they're so over the top in support of Trump, and they're so quick to dismiss the other side. We all know people like that.
So I know a pastor who very vocally former pastor of mine, very vocally was against Trump in this election, and so many people go on how could you be a Christian and be against Trump? How could you and it's like, no, that's just divisiveness, guys.
Right.
Why don't you say, hey, why are you against?
My question would be, why are you so for him?
And that's the opposite.
Because
that's what I'm saying.
That's
we don't
idolatry.
ask the why anymore.
Yeah.
We don't ask the why.
That's idolatry.
We don't look for information.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, we're so uneducated when it comes to us voting.
Mm-hmm.
We don't look for information.
Well, and
we don't look for history.
when you put a human being up here,
Mm-hmm.
that's idolatry. And when we were in St. Peter's, people were bowing down at Pope John Paul's statue. And his area is much larger than other areas in the basilica. And they're walking around and just looking at him like, what are you guys doing? You're bowing down to the statue of a human being.
Well, that's on the what was it? Some of the statues of like Caesar and stuff like that. The feet used to be at eye level, so that you would kiss. You would be kissing the feet of Caesar as you approach.
And I don't want people to get me wrong. And I'm not bad mouthing Pope John Paul,
right?
Because in modern times,
but we can't put him above.
We can't put him above God.
Right.
He's a human man. He's a human being. And Pope John Paul was a good pope and did a lot of good things. I mean, he was. So just let me go ahead and preface that by saying Pope John Paul was a really good pope, and Catholics and non-Catholics loved the things that he said, because he did a really good job of extending past doctrine and bringing people together. He was really good at that. The most recent pope, who just passed away, I think had a lot of those characteristics. We'll see if this new guy from the United States is the same way. But when you put humans on that status, it's idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so when people are like, don't attach God qualities to any human being, because when people say, well, what about Jesus? Jesus was God. It was his son. He came down in human form. So I hate to for those, and if you're talking to a non-believer, it's like right over their head. So,
I heard it described, and just to go on this Jesus is God part for a minute, I heard it described as the Trinity being a lot like the sun in the sky. So you have the sun, which emits light, and then it also emits heat, which is what we feel, which is the spirit, and the light is what we see, which is Jesus. But the presence is the sun, which is God. And so it's all the same entity, but it's all three in one that you experience. Yeah. And I heard that the other day. I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just think we need to get back to more humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if people want a great example of what humanity looks like, go to the flood-ravaged areas, because nobody's asking their political affiliation. Nobody's asking their religious affiliation. They're not asking if they're religious or all. We need help. You're here to help? Okay, I need you over here. Mm-hmm. And people go do it. And people see the processions of these kids and family members being brought back to their communities for burial. There's people lining the roads. Nobody's asking their political affiliation.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's just being human beings. And if you're out there and you don't have feelings about that, and that doesn't emotionally charge you up, then we need to get you on an EKG and find out where your heart is, because you don't have to be a Christian to be moved by that.
Yeah. You
don't have to be and I don't like I'm like Pastor Jody. I don't like using the Christian term, because the Christians to me are box checkers.
Yeah.
I want to be known as a Christ follower.
Yep.
That's good.
I mean, we're supposed to follow a rabbi.
Yeah, and I want to, and I'm not the best at it, but when people see me now, I want them to see that I'm not like how I used to be, that I'm doing the best I can to emulate the message of what Jesus told us to be, and hopefully, see that in the things that I do and the things that I say. That's why I don't cuss, and that's why I listen to worship music, and I don't do that to throw it out there for other people's like, oh, he thinks he's better than us. No, that's just what works for me.
Man, I have a well-placed F-bomb every now and then that I just can't let go of.
and that's fine. So, people say, again, when we're in our darkest hour, that's when the light shows up.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
And I look at, look at, if people want a historical reference to that, look at Winston Churchill in England during World War II when it's just them. And Germany's bombing the ever-loving crap out of them with the Blitzkrieg. Just bombing. He calls up, can't get any help. There's nobody there to help. And when things look their worst, look who that worked out. Light will always win out over darkness.
Yep.
Always.
What do you think, Josh?
I couldn't help but just think about, oddly enough, the creation story, where we think of our day starting morning to evening, but in Jewish history, it was the evening and the morning are the first day. Mm-hmm. Light always supersedes the darkness to create your day.
Yeah,
the sun always rises.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah, light will always. Another weird analogy: Star Wars. Good always triumphs over evil. Yeah, and people will be like, "No, it doesn't. What about, you have people out there preying on children. You have this. You have wars. You have that.
That's a battle.
That's a battle.
Yeah, war's not over till
what happens at the end?
Jesus comes.
What happens in the end?
Yeah,
and light will always win out over darkness.
Yep. That fire in the sky is going to come one day.
Hey, Jesus, God's undefeated, man. He has a better record than the Harlem Globetrotters.
Amen. That seems like a good place to land it. Any final thought?
No, I don't have any. If you
pray for our country.
Pray for our Pray for our
There's a lot of turmoil coming up.
Pray for our country, and more importantly, pray for the people in our country to have the scales removed from their eyes, and pray for our politicians to get back to
pray for our enemies.
Get back to God, and we pray for our enemies. We pray for Iran. We pray for Palestine.
Right.
We pray for common sense and good judgment, and we pray for our next door neighbor that we may not always like. Mm-hmm. We pray for our exes and everything.
Pray for humility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of people think about when Christ said, turn the other cheek. They don't realize the history behind what that is. Is normally, historically, you would not use your left hand because your left hand was used for wiping yourself. Mm-hmm. And so if you were to be struck on your cheek, it would be a cross. So then it was rude to do with the back of the hand. Mm-hmm. And so what he's saying is turn the other cheek and let them hit you again with the back of their hand to show that you're humble. And so pray for humility.
Yeah.
That's good.
And be servants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you just said, don't just go a mile, go 2 miles.
Be a Christ follower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for the history lesson, Coach.